Good morning, fellow traders. This is Tao, and we will be talking today about Ethereum's long-term support zones and how to trade them or invest into them. Anyways, let's get started right away. First thing we do is we pull out the macro timeframes just to mark off some supports and resistance key points we can see. Obviously, there is the high of the last big rally in 17-18. And when we look on the yearly, we also see a nice, really big open close zone on the Ethereum as well. That an interesting untested sort of support area here, some price high of a candle, which will be interesting if we zone down to lower time frames. And as you know, the way we trade price action, the highest time frame always matters the most and directs the lower time. Anyways, then we go down to the 3 monthly, and I will have the log turned on just to put it into perspective. It's interesting here, if you look at it, those zones we just marked off still make sense, a lot of sense. This is the high obviously from before. So just alright, there we go. Interesting to note here is that we have 3 monthly close dating back to October 20th. So this already seems like this is a zone that will be important. 770s here. Between the high of 2007 1.8, there is not a lot between this area here on the 3 monthly, right? So keep that in mind. Now, even though it seems highly unrealistic at this point that Ethereum will trade as low as hundreds again, you never know. It's technically what I call in crypto Bitcoin. There's only shitcoins and Bitcoin, and there's bigger and better Bitcoins and lesser shitcoins. So there's some interesting spot here with these dojis on the 3 monthly. So for me, this zone here is interesting as well. And we'll see later if this actually is true or not, but something to keep note of. Now, obviously, if we ever trade down there, you do wanna average in for sure long term. If crypto is to stay, it's hard to imagine that Ethereum won't have another move upwards at some point, even if it's a mean reversion play. Mean reversion from 100 to 5,000 is somewhere around 2,500. So you can do the math on that one. Then interesting spots for me also on the 3 monthly here. Is definitely something around here. An open. Looks like it's not really tested. We will look on the lower time frames. This one as well. And this one, not sure about it. So we'll skip down to the next time frame. Obviously, if you look at the Orca and if you look at the MACD, it's not really usable, right? You can see, of course, we have a down move right now. We have an impulsive move downwards, so there is momentum going into that move. Obviously, it makes sense. Log out for a second. This looks pretty scary on non-log, right? But that's why I put log on to put it into perspective. Price history. Okay, so still looks fine on the monthly for me personally. Looks like it's not really tested, but you can see this movement here, so we will look at it in a second, and I'll tell you why I believe that this high won't really last. This area here still looks very much in play. Very interesting area here. So what we can do right now is we can definitely mark it off in a different color, so we see that. Let's use this for the color for the monthly. Mark it off once so we know. And then we look at the rest of the levels here. You can already see that there's some interesting zones forming, right? This was the 3 daily zones. This was the spinner of the 3 daily. And you can see here, this is definitely some inflection point, some support resistance flipped a couple of times in the past. So this zone here, in my opinion, is very, very interesting and very important. If we get down there, like I expect this cluster here, right here, this cluster, this should hold, or at least give a big pop. to the upside. I don't know. I mean, obviously saying 100% should hold, that's always not how you want to trade, because you think in terms of probabilities, right? But this cluster here, it looks very, very, very interesting. A lot of touches, upside, downside. Had some consolidation after we traded above it, and then we moved higher, right? And this whole impulsive wave right here. So keep this one in mind. We'll, lower to the monthly for sure. You can see on the MACD obviously that the histogram is showing you even the last move upwards here. We already were starting to round out on the histogram. No divergences on the monthly yet, so it was hard to catch this one on the monthly, but we'll see on the 2 weekly and weekly that you definitely could have caught that the crypto is going to turn into at least yearly, 2 yearly, 3 yearly bear market kind of phase, which we are in already, right? For a while. Everybody's starting to call it now a bear market, but I've been saying it on Twitter for probably better of 5 months or something. We are in a bear market. Anyhow, so the high here, still interesting. There's maybe something you can mark off here, so let's just go for it for right now, but we'll see in a bit if this still is a zone that's interesting on lower time frames. Nothing more to add for me, because we really caught the real zones here on the three monthly already, right? So keep these in mind. This is definitely a highly confluent area for me. This is something where you want to start longing. I will tell you how to, or I will give you hints on how to trade the setups, you know, whichever zone you believe is the right one. You don't want DCA in for average, which is totally fine too. I will do that in my long term, but I will also try to trade obviously the higher zones. So if we move down here, this zone here, what we marked before, it looks like there is something, right? You can see there is some touches, support resistance right here. It's still too high time frame for me to exactly know what's going on in this area here. Area here is important to look at in a second, but you can see there's a touch to the high side here as well, right? So there is something here for sure. This looks tested now on the weekly. So we had after catching this high, the small minor high on the upside, we came back, revisited the zone and popped off. So therefore this is probably not a zone that will hold, but this cluster here is going to be important. So we still see there is probably something in there that's not tested, and this zone overall will be an important one, but you probably won't be lucky catching, you won't be lucky trading this to the tick on 480 or 499, whatever price mark is here, right? This area still here is a very untested zone, very nice zone for me. This looks on the lower time frames, this looks very, very cool. You can see right here the daily spinner of the top. The lower wick is right here as well. So cool. 2 weekly. Mark it off, different color. So this is what I do when I want to see what's going on and, you know, recalibrate. You do this, you just clean the charts completely and you mark down the levels, you mark down what's important, and then you can go on the lower time frames if you're day trading. So anyways, this still is a very interesting area here. This looks kind of, probably this zone right down here with the spinner is probably the high of the spinner here. That's interesting. That off. And we, right now you can see weekly, I already marked this off before stream. I was talking about this interesting head and shoulders formation, sort of head and shoulders formation. It's a very, very ugly one, but usually the ugly ones are the one that work the best. And as you can see, we definitely broke this kind of zone, and the technical target of this move here would be somewhere around move here, sort of this height, and then you just, this would be a conservative target from the high down. This is what I usually take to be, you know, to know this is my first profit take. You take it from the break, which is what most people like to do. You get some move somewhere around the 900s, which is interesting, right? Because this is also more or less this high zone here. All right, anyway, let's move down further. On the weekly, you can see definitely the divergence building. On the moves up here, you see there's no really increase in strength, and you see that buying or backing for sure. But let's talk about the long-term support zones, which is why we are making this video. Right here, you see this touch from the high down. So it's kind of confirming this resistance before, popping off again, trying to make a new high, fails, breaks below, so it's breaking the trend more or less. And then you see the real break here. retest, go down. So this area here, for sure, still very important. And I believe that this will be definitely a zone that we will see slowing down of the price movement down on this move right now. Pretty sure we will be able to trade this. Mark it down as the weekly. Now weekly time frame trading, as you know, means it's not as pinpoint specific, right? But you know that area will more or less give a reaction. Most likely you see here, it's definitely untouched. You see a small resistance on the way up, which is what we like in price action trading. I like in price action trading. You want to take the longs of prior resistances on the way up and you take the shorts of prior supports on the way down, right? In that case, short, we never got to that area, but part would have been which I was waiting for and didn't get it. I was being pretty greedy. This would be classic short, right? Retest, also retest sort of this neckline, retest this area here because it's support on the way down. Up there is something here. Well, right there, right? So this area here would have been very interesting short. Didn't get it yet. Maybe we'll get it before we move further down. Maybe we get a bounce at the high here. But now to talk about this high here, why I think it's not going to be really the big hold. For me, this area here, it got tested already, right? We had this break above, right here, break above, and we came down and tested it again, right? So after this move, I consider this area already revisited. So more likely for me would be an area below, which we didn't revisit. So maybe this is prior to the all-time high break, right? So maybe we see something here. Potential area. Not a really nice one for me personally. This looks very yucky here, very hard to trade, but those are something the real ones anyway. And you still see this zone here. Still pretty much a zone I think is very important. You can start marking off some different highs here and see if there's something on the lower time frames in this area as well if you want to be really accurate, right? You still have this big zone here. I will just mark it so we see this. Definitely something you want to keep in mind. Lower time frames as well. This level here starts to form some interesting context here, right? You see this was definitely a zone where you had this first high down, make a new high, bounce first here, try to bounce off, fail, lose whole move here. So this area here also on the way up proved to be in some sort of resistance, and here it's proved to be some sort of support, right? And there's some sort of small context here as well. So I would keep this in mind here, this area zone, which I would like to trade. Now, if you want to trade these kind of zones, this is obviously what we want to do as well. Still here is very important as well. Maybe even this one is interesting. And probably something. I like these. I like this doji. We marked off at the beginning as a 3 daily, right? It's in my opinion also very cool. You can see it on low time frames. A lot of price action was traded here, which is how the dojis form on the lower time frames. You see doji, when you zoom down to the lower time frames, you will always see there is some sort of price action, support, resistance, and trading around that area. And usually that is also a point where you wanna take trade because those are the ones that hold the most. So this high here of this doji is interesting. The doji area itself is interesting, right? And if you just look at dojis on the context on these moves, here's the monthly doji right there. Okay, cool. Maybe mark it off if you want to. A lot of lines. You see how this could get confusing, right? But you gotta do it, otherwise you lose context. So there's a doji, here's a doji where I marked it off, so we'll just let it be. Monthly dojis are usually very strong. Something on this area here is very interesting, right? It's a yearly fucking doji right there, right in the zone as well. You see the doji itself, where pretty much open entry, and you also see the high of the wick. Very important. You usually see some sort of bounces off of these. So anyways, 2 weekly, we have done this. Now, if you want, I can pull off the log so you see how fucking scary this looks, right? But no emotions, my friends, no emotions. Just trade, use a system, and keep on trading, and keep the same system. Hopefully, you will have a win rate of 33% higher, and possible in that scenario, win a risk to reward ratio of over 3, because then you're going to be profitable over the long run. So, anyways, let's see. This area here is hard to trade. This area here is hard to trade. But definitely these are areas you want to keep note of, because these seem to be easy trade areas. Now you could also just say, once we get to these to this cluster down here, you just start dollar cost averaging in, which is something to do for long-term portfolios, and I like that. I would do that as well, because you won't have the issue of FOMO and missing that entry, the perfect entry. You just start averaging in around that area, and whatever price does, even if it wicks further down, as long as your long-term support, your long-term thesis and your long-term support stays intact, fine for move upwards, and you can start taking profits and scale out, right? So this area here is very, very tricky to trade. We will probably get some reaction in here, because there is a lot of price action in here. I think it's going to be below this low. They will drive below this low here, or they will hold in this area here. They will hold this wick right here. I like to call part of the move. Keep an eye on 1,360, and with a stop below 1,300, right? And the target would be, as a starter, 1,600. So daily, mark off your stop with red if you want to. So on, right? Usually, what they like to do though on real down moves is they like to even sometimes run the low and close above it, because we're trading on 3 daily or daily time frame here on these setups, right? So usually, what you like to do is you like to use the close. Now I can see how that's scary, but you use your risk to reward tool and you punch in some numbers. Have a scalping account, you can scalping 4,000, 5,000, whatever size you're trading, up to you. You punch in your numbers here. You probably take some above, around the line, and some below the line of entry. Gives you some sort of average entry of this, right? Your stop, you want to give it leeway somewhere around low. You using the close, so obviously in a downtrend, be aware of the problem that with force, those could be pretty rough. And then personally, because we're trading against the trend right now, I don't use 1.5 to 2% rule. I use 1%, but you could use 1.5% rule. Risk management is key. So that's a risk to reward of 3.9. Even if this one stops out and you take more around the 3 to 4 risk to reward ratio, as long as you hit 1 and 3, you're good to go and you make money, right? So this would be one setup. This next setup we would want to is, I don't like, this is, you need to, for this one you need to drill down on the lower time frames, which is gonna, go above the idea of this video, so you will have to do it yourself. But there's definitely something going to happen right here in this area here, for sure. Not sure exactly where. I want to drill down on it on the video right now. But the next area here is this. So you can look at this is a very interesting area. You probably have to drill down. Interesting, a very yikes zone to trade on the short term. Well, yikes anyway, because what you have to do is you have to use this above, and probably because it's log, right? Okay, so you use this kind of setup here, low below, something that makes sense, lows below, so maybe give some leeway, and then your actual target in the sense of this move here is either this, or if before we form some sort of cluster, it's that. Right now this would be obviously an insane risk to reward, so you want to take this trade. But I imagine there's going to be happening something here, so it would be something like it's fine, right? You could also say, okay, we just lost this move here from before, because we traded below it, so maybe it's just this, and that would be a 2 point. Not the best. So anyway, next area. This is generally an area what you could wait for is you could wait for some sort of price action forming on the down move, and then taking a trade that looks more or less something like down. We trade here a bit down, and you see some move like this, trade above the last high, and then you take the entry. We have some smaller time frame move down, and we trade above it. That's sensible. So everything else is sort of catching a knife, which you want to have some experience with. Possible that this lower area here is maybe the one they use. Possible they use this area. And it kind of looks completely tested as well. Something untested here. You could go for some. These are all against the higher time frame, so be aware of it. Using this. Stop here. Use a sensible target above. Yeah. This looks interesting on a daily. I can see that happening here. And long-term, really long-term targets where I think you definitely want to go big. I personally, I think we will find something around here and trade higher than what makes sense most, because that's where everybody's going to be looking now. Before, nobody was thinking we will trade to 800 or 1,400, and everybody said, yeah, no way. Now that we are there, they will be people will start calling for 380 and 260 and stuff, which is sensible in a way, but usually in the past it never has happened that we traded back low into that range. We flipped off the high even. So this is the area I want to look at, in my opinion. Very nice area. We talked about this on the 3 daily. It was insane. Personally, I probably will start averaging in heavily, and what trades you can take is you can take the untested ones here. This one right there. Take this one right there. It's tested, you see. It got back tested, so not this one. You can look on lower time frames if there's something in that area. Right here, this area here seems untested. It's also, yeah, this is probably it. Probably going to be somewhere around. So you start in above. What the f is this happening? Much easier on me. It's kind of, you take this low below, or you try multiple ones on a small time frame, but that does give you, you're prone to over trading in that case. So personally, if it's really long term, you will take this kind of setup here, in my opinion, with a close below, right on, I don't know, the 3 daily or something. Start averaging in maybe in 3 or 4 parts, and you can push the average down to this degree and put in the rest after we confirm the bottom to a degree. And your first general profit take is somewhere around this high before, and this cluster here. So already 12R, which is insane. And obviously, if you're a long-term holder and you just want to nail the bottom, we are likely to, mean reversion will tell us we will go to 2,000 at least. Gives you a risk to reward ratio. Same. Keep in mind, this is an area want to be trading as a setup. You could also go and zoom out and then be like, this area overall seems so nice. I will average in 5 or 6 parts over multiple months, or maybe 8, and I will use this as a stop out. Stop out of $100. Ethereum 200, yeah, you heard it first here. No, but you could be doing this, right? Perfect average entry right there. This is why averaging in could be perfect as well. I like trading it, so personally look for this kind of move here. Revisit and punch up. That's where you want to in your setup and you have better risk to reward and easier stop outs and clearer stop outs. But overall, these zones here are for me the important zones. So to recap the zones, TLDR. There is something around 1,100 to 1,200. However, the way price is moving right now, for me, it's more likely that we visit the 800 range. In my opinion, that's going to be the bottom anyway, the 800 range. However, from a technical standpoint, this zone here is such a strong zone. Might as well test it right here, 400s. So these are the 3 big zones I think you want to pay attention to. The 1, 2 to 1, 1. Want to pay attention to them probably starting around here, this high. So maybe 850s down to 700. And then on the time frames, you can look to catch some sort of bounce off this area here. It's a very key support area. Right down here is a very key area as well. So next support zone is 490s probably, but going to be a bounce around the 430s, 20s. But that's definitely an area you want to keep an eye out. And then lowest ones right here are obviously 130, which would be some sort of leg start move, trend start move, right? The big ass trend we're retracing now, we're back to. So right in there should, if we ever get there, this is a very nice trade to take with a very low stops. Want to take it on a lower time frame. As I said, if you want to just chill and you're some sort of investor, start averaging in. Maybe even on your monthly salary or whatever you're doing, start around the 800s for sure. Maybe even if you have some FOMO, start around 1100s. You never know where price reverses, right? But zone wise, this looks like a whole load of nothingness. So I think this area down here, maybe 700, 800. This has only context to the left. And the real context here is probably on these areas and on these areas, right? There is something here. This is super messy, so I will drill down on this and share Twitter entries or the zones I think are very important. But there's something in the 1-1 to 1. So anyways, the way you want to trade it, you saw the system, right? You use the untested ones. You maybe average in a bit above, a bit below, and in the middle of it, and your stop is on close below that valley, whatever it is, that area here, right? In this, or if you're trading this, it's up below this area here. I would use the closes on the time frame you're trading it. So if you're using this support cluster here on this 3 daily, you want a 3 daily close. Daily as well. Then you obviously try this area as an entry here. Try this area as an entry here with stop below here. So here or more. Okay, that way you can get a good risk to reward setup. You just keep taking them. In my opinion, if you're trading on a daily or below, you want to take a 1% risk to reward right now, because obviously you're catching knives, right? And if you're trading on higher time frames, in my opinion, you can take a higher risk to reward setup. On the log, it does look very nice. There it looks. There, this is definitely Hail Mary. We'll have to hold. Yeah, I think this here is 700s to 800s. Most likely, we hold this. This is kind of a bullish bounce for me, considering the history of sell-offs and the timing right now. I do think we're still probably a couple of months out before the bottom on altcoins, because I think that Bitcoin will bottom around probably September, August. We'll see how the price gets there. Anyways, this was it for the video. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and I will do some altcoins and Bitcoin long-term targets, supports, resistance zones and setups in a bit. If you have a specific one, you can just leave a comment. All right, take care, trade safe.